Hi, welcome to Jump's Point of View. If you've been following Redmaster's videos on the Cards and Castles tournament, uh, these games are going to be different. You won't see any repeats in this series. Hopefully you enjoy them. This first round is in the open qualifiers against WhoCarss, and he's running a red-yellow combo. I'm running white and green. I've sped up the gameplay for all these games to 2x speed since I'm doing a solo cast and don't have quite as much to say as if I was doing a double cast, but let's take a look at the gameplay, shall we? So first we can see the game is progressing fairly aggressively for WhoCarss. He's got a sunflower down, so it's a decent potential that he could be running Last Will, but always common in these colors these days is no interactions as well. So at this point, I didn't know which one it was going to be, but he's pushed his sunflower all the way forward. I have to deal with that since he has healing. I don't. I need to find a way to gain the edge. At this point, I know he's not going to move his sunflower, and that my rat hovel is going to die. But instead of killing it this round with the rat plus the Maddie with one attack, I know that I can leave it there and spawn one extra rat. So I decide to do that. I'll leave it for one extra turn. This way I'll be able to get just a little bit more value out of the rat hovel. I can't leave it there forever, of course, since it will just keep chipping away at my castle, and that's going to lead to a loss. And I play the Call for Aid. That's going to hopefully give me some power cards that I can outrun these ranged units. See if the Dark Benders can handle such a healthy unit. Now, they are a threat, especially when there are two of them, so the best move there is to give one of them a small buff and then take down one of them. I'm afraid of Dragon's Fire here, so I decided not to play the Blacksmith, but at this point we see he's got a Arcanon General. That means it's almost certainly a Last Will deck, no interactions. And once you know your opponent's deck, and if you've played the deck yourself, you know what sort of cards are coming next, and that can be a big help for giving you the edge and helping you win more games. So here we go. I'm going to choose to play either a Mercenary's Execution here, or I can trade a Northlands Ranger into the Dark Bender. I have a 10 gold power play, so I decided to rush forward with the Northlands Ranger. I also push my Blacksmith here into a bit more of a powerful position. I'm not afraid of it dying to the Dark Bender, since if the Dark Bender kills it, it's game over and I can win with two Northlands Rangers running down. At this point, I realize there's almost no chance for him to come back, and so I dropped respect, but he's in tournament and he's going to play it out to the best of his ability. In hindsight here, it probably would have been best to play Blacksmith first. You get 2 extra damage on the castle, but if I did that, I would have had to run forward with Elvish Thief and One-Eyed Maddie instead of having another Mordok. But anyway, game 1 is a win, so now we're going to take a look at game 2. This is a best of 3, so if I win a second time in a row, it'll be a completed series. This time, we both switched up the decks. I assumed that he would switch his deck since it's a he got countered by my deck in the last match. So he switched to a school deck, which is interesting, and it hit very well for him. He's got the early treasure, early school, and the coin. So even though he's played plenty of cards, gotten a bit of treasure already, he's still drawing two more cards this turn and able to get out a very early Grendel. So it's a scary position to be in. I'm very glad to have Dragon's Fire in my hand. We're going to see what the best way to handle it is. And in situations like this where it's a pivotal turn, you really want to take your time to think out the whole turn before you do it. So in this case, the choice I made was to push my units forward, take out that school, otherwise I knew I would get outscaled, and I'm going to summon a, what's this unit called? Can't remember, but a protector so that hopefully we can block the Grendel damage on the castle. In this case, very well played from WhoCarss, taking out or putting all the damage onto the ghosts at front so that he can deal damage to the castle. And with the units I've got, I don't think I can afford another hit, so I'm really trying to minimize my damage here. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to take out the Grendel this turn, so I opt to put out a wizard and just try and deal with it next turn. Meanwhile, his assault continues with rats, with now more gold generation. So here the play will be Dragon's Fire plus a wizard attack to deal with all his units, and unfortunately the buff from the Grendel does go to the blacksmith and not the wizard. I could have also summoned the lumberjack before killing off the Grendel, but in that case it's a 33% chance of the buff going on the wizard, which is really the best target, and only 66% chance, or 66% chance to go on something else that I don't want it to go on. Now a Mordok is going to be very tough to deal with, so he's gotten a bit better draws this game. It's going to be constantly putting me in the trickiest of spots, but I think of a nice play with my Bestial Rage to deal with it. Unfortunately, did not get my blocker in time, and in tournament play, that's crucial. You always want to make sure you have enough time, but you know what? Everyone falls to the clock sometimes. He's got his units positioned well to not be hurt too much by a swordsman attack, but I'm still going to summon the swordsman, that way he can't get any more draw from the Craxus. The best way for me to come back into the game at this point is by having him run out of cards. Unfortunately, the global buff comes out, the only thing I didn't want to see, and we're going to see more strong units heading my way. At this point, with him having Crusaders, me not having Crusaders, the clock is ticking. I need to get to that castle. So I'm going to summon a ranged unit. Hopefully that'll trade well with the Northlands Ranger. But again, drag his early game units early, his late game units late. It's really hard to deal with. And I made sure to position my wizard to threaten the Northlands Ranger and the Rat Hovel. That way I can always adapt to the situation that comes up. I do run a couple or no, sorry, that was a Fortify from the Banshee. But I do run a bunch of ranged units in this deck. They work incredibly well with Bestial Rage, going in and out of castle attack range and then back to safety. Now his hand is running thin again without a Craxus on the board. There is a small hint of hope. I get some big value from this Beastmaster. Going to be able to take out a couple things, but with 2 rats spawning each time, I almost need to do better than that. So the best course of action here is to have the strongest ranged unit in the middle, and then the wizard towards the bottom to take out one of those rat hovels, and he draws more global buffs, which are going to make the rats even more devastating. Now, luckily I draw a centaur. That's going to help deal with the global buffs. Now, you can either decide in this sort of a situation to take out the rat hovel or to take out his armories. It depends on how many they have, but often it's better to take out the rat hovel, stop the spawn rather than stop the lots of damage. In this case, it may have been better to take out another armory, but I wouldn't have known that he had another blacksmith in hand. So I have to now really start heading for that castle. As you can see by my aggressive positioning from the White Knight, and I'm going to decide to push all my units forward, need to hit the castle as fast as possible. Unfortunately, he does have the Arbiter's Return, and that will be the end of the game. If I had played my second, what are they called? Not a Banshee. The second unit further back to block the spawn, it would have just been a later turn where I died. I had to be aggressive. It was just not going to happen. But luckily, that does mean we're going to a game number 3, which means more content. And in this one, I'm back to playing green-white, and WhoCarss is back to playing yellow and red. So looks like it's back to game number 1 matchups. In this case, I'm actually playing a slightly different deck, but just with the same colors. This one focuses a bit more on the early game, and it hopes to finish the game out earlier than the last deck we saw in game 1. I run a couple copies of Scope, and the idea is that you can use either Scope or Bestial Rage to hit the castle with ranged units from a distance. In this case, I drew both into my deck, so I'm going to go for the cheaper option. It may have been a better choice to go with the Dwarven Scope, knowing that his deck has some burn. Get that 1 extra health on a wizard can be a game changer. And the reason I sacrificed my Elvish Thief was because it's sort of something to occupy his Darkbender. The more I can take up his time and keep my wizard alive, the better. Now with the Dwarven Scope in hand as my last card, it's a little bit scary, but it does mean that I have more power to continue attacking with this wizard. So let's take a look. The wizard had 4 health. Using Phantom Strike to save some gold would have been nice for some turns, but ultimately I know that I'm not going to be running. Gold isn't my most valued resource here. It's my wizard, which I really needed to keep alive with that 1 extra health. So that was the option I chose. I got a lucky swordsman draw, and I'm able to hit 2 units at the same time. For those who have not encountered that interaction before, the swordsman still cleaves around himself just 1 space, even though he attacks 2 spaces. So luckily that 1 extra health on the wizard means he can survive a would-be attack from the Arbiter's Return, and it can nearly kill off the Darkbender. Now I got another lucky draw, a late game unit. If you draw an early game unit this late into the game with this deck, it can be very detrimental, but Call for Aid is one of the best cards I could have drawn. And I'm able to swing into the castle for lethal damage. And that'll be the end of the first qualifier. So hopefully you stick around, watch. I have 2 more videos coming out. Next is the round of 8 versus Inferno Foxy, and finally the semifinals versus Jesper. And then if you want to watch the finals, you can find those either on Redmaster's channel or on Beastly's channel coming up later today. So hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.